Hey, my name is Kane Jung Bluth Murray. I was the announcer for Project M 3.6, and today I'll be teaching you how to play a card game that was based off of fighting games and RPGs. The game is called Conquering Hearts, and it was designed by Wave Rock. Upon opening your box,
Action.
God damn.
upon opening your, upon opening, come on. Upon opening your box, you'll notice that there are both red and blue cards and green and purple cards to distinguish which player is which. For the beginner's tutorial, you'll need these cards. As the name suggests, the health cards act as your health bar, or in this case, your health stack. Every time you take damage, you'll take a card from the top of this pile and put it face down next to it. The goal of the game is to reduce your opponent's health stack to 0 cards. The game starts by both players choosing one of the 6 cards and putting them face down on the table. Both players reveal their cards at the same time. The 6 cards that you have in your hand have a little blue icon shown here. This icon means that this card is an infinite ability. Every time you use an infinite ability, you get that ability back at the end of the turn. If you hit someone with the attack card, then they lose 1 health card. Attacks can be blocked with the defend card. The defend card blocks any amount of damage. Any amount of damage? Oh, hell yeah. The counter card stops all damage and reverses 1 damage back onto your opponent. Even if your opponent dealt 2 or more damage, the counter card will only reverse 1 damage. If your opponent does not attack when you're using your counter, then you become vulnerable. Being vulnerable means you cannot use any cards for 1 turn. Double Take deals 2 damage at once, but makes you vulnerable whenever used. Pierce is the only card that can break the defend card. Pierce breaks through the defend shield and deals 1 damage. Like Double Take, you become vulnerable after using Pierce. The final infinite ability, Charge, allows you to combine 2 cards together in the following turn. You can combine any 2 cards together except the Charge card itself. When combining cards together, there's a certain sequence of events that happens. We'll call this sequence the Charge sequence. First, attack and defense attempts happen simultaneously. In other words, attack, defend, pierce, and double take would happen at the same time because they either attempt to inflict damage or block damage. Lastly in this sequence is the counter card. Consider counter to be an on-off switch. If you use counter, but your opponent does not attack you in the same turn, then counter is left inactive, and you become vulnerable. But if you use counter and your opponent tries to inflict damage on you in the same turn, then your counter activates by blocking their damage and reversing 1 damage back onto them. Counter only activates 1 time. For example, if your opponent used only counter, but you combined attack with counter, then your opponent who only used counter takes 1 damage. Why? Your attack happens first, sending your attack onto your opponent, which activates their counter. Their counter sends 1 damage towards you, which activates your counter and reverses that 1 damage back onto them, so they take the hit and lose 1 health. If you and your opponent both combined an attack with counter, then both you and your opponent would take 1 damage for the same reasons. Combining cards that have vulnerability together will still only give you 1 turn of vulnerability. For example, if you combine Double Take and Pierce together in the same turn, but your opponent only used Defend, then they would take 3 damage and you would still only be vulnerable for 1 turn. There is one exception to this rule though. If you combine Counter and Pierce together, but counter never activates, then you must suffer 2 turns of vulnerability. Using Pierce when your opponent is vulnerable will act as a regular attack card and won't make you vulnerable. If both players become vulnerable at the same time, then both players will simply move to the next turn. This mechanic is called the instant charge. If a player blocks an attack card with the defend card and neither player receives damage, then both players will race to put another card face up to combine their revealed card, like the charge ability, but instantaneous. For example, if you use attack and your opponent uses defend, then you could choose to put down the pierce card face up before they put down a card, dealing them 2 damage. Or alternatively, if you're the one using defend and your opponent used attack, you could use double take to deal 2 damage while blocking their attack, since defend was your revealed card. Dang, see how that works? We'll cover the super abilities and the health abilities in the next video. Thanks for watching part 1 of the beginner's tutorial of the game Conquering Hearts. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell so you're ready for the next video.